Welcome to day 3 of Cook for Victory. My name is Maddie.
And my name is Millie, and tonight we are cooking at Cookery School at Little Portland Street with a special guest, Tom Hunt.
Hi everyone.
So Tom Hunt is here to help us out. He's going to talk a little bit about himself and a little bit about sustainability tonight. But you may well know tonight we are doing bread, and bread takes a little bit of love. It's a labor of love. It takes a little bit of time to prove, bake, all of that, and of course mix. So the very first thing we're going to do is, for you at home, you're going to get yourself either a glass bowl or a tub of some sort that can go in your oven full of boiling water to get your makeshift prover set up. And then you're going to get your ingredients. We are doing half a recipe of wholemeal and half a recipe of malt house today. So that is 225 grams of flour, a half pound. You might be doing a whole, and you might be doing a whole recipe in a different type of flour, but the process is going to be exactly the same. You're going to get yourself all your ingredients: oil, salt, yeast, flour of choice. And for today, if you want to push it like we are, you're going to get some nice warm water. We'll talk about all these ingredients afterwards, but for right now, we just want to get the mixing process started because it can take a little bit of time and it needs a good amount of time in the oven. So this is quite warm water just to kind of bully our dough a little bit into proving and help the yeast. All these recipes, if you're doing once the recipe, you're starting with 1 cup. If you're doing half a recipe like us, you start with a half cup and we can always add more after, okay? So let's go in with half.
Can I just butt in with questions?
Absolutely.
Am I allowed to do
Yeah,
that?
jump on in.
What sort of, if you've got a thermometer, what sort of temperature would you go for on the water?
It depends on how fast you want your yeast to move. So we're talking maximum 30 degrees, I would say, because your yeast can really max out over that. Okay. So for us, we've got
I've pushed it to 40.
Yeah, I think once
I go 40. Yeah. I think enzymes start to die at 42. So you can push it like super warm if you're in a massive hurry.
Yeah, and I think when your flour is 23 degrees and your oil is cold and everything like that, I think it drops it really quickly. For I would guess this is 35 closing in on 40. We're pushing it today. Yeah. So like a baby's bath, warm water, everything in. So I want all your oil in upside down, all your yeast in upside down. Please. All your salt in upside down, and if you don't like getting your hands mucky, now is not a good time. We are doing this by hand. We're talking half a cup of water to start, but most bakers will tell you the wetter the better. So we're going to see what a half cup looks like. We're going to go half cup in and a rough half cup. It can be 125. We've got 4 ounce here. We're going to judge it by what it looks like in the bowl because it can be a little bit different every day. I know, for example, that I'm doing wholemeal, therefore it's going to soak up a lot more water.
So Maddie, what would happen if I put boiling water in the bowl?
Your yeast would die. Your yeast is a fungus, so think of it, it's a living thing. If you boil it, you're cooking it and it will die. So it's a happy little baby. Don't kill your baby. For me, you are very conservative. I'm going in with 1 finger. This is my dough hook. I'm just going to mix it into a little kind of dough ball in the center. Now, in terms of hydration, let's look. What have you got? Not bad. Mine looks a little bit on the drier side, so I'm going to chuck in the rest of my water and ask Ms. Mill for a little bit more.
If anything, this is a tiny bit wet, but in my experience, when you're kneading bread, it starts to absorb more of the water and dry out. So starting with a slightly higher hydration and then learning to add more and more liquid can end up with a more interesting bread.
All right, I'm happy with mine. Let's go.
Okay.
Oh, you can just teach everyone. What are you doing?
Well, okay, so this is the malt grain, right? Which means there's malted grains in it, like wheat, and is there any other grains in
There's
here?
some barley.
Some barley.
It's an ancient grain mixed through, but the main ingredient that's making it nice and kind of light brown is the malted barley.
Okay, and then there's a few different ways you can knead bread, obviously. One way that I really like is just to smear it on the table like this, because you're really stretching the gluten matrix and then bringing it back together. And you're getting, like, if you're going to knead by hand, it means that you have a really effective knead. I mean, when I learned to knead in the 80s, it was kind of like fold like this, and it didn't do anything. It was just like not really kind of pushing that gluten, stretching it and making it work. Because at the end of the day, bread's all about the gluten, right?
I was going to say,
like strengthening the gluten so that the bread can rise in the oven to create that incredible, wonderful, soft texture.
So if you're being gentle, I call that playing with your food. Now is not a time to be gentle. You want to basically force the gluten into your dough. You want it to be springy. You can see already mine's starting to move as I smear it along the bench. That's a good start. Just
and of
that
course,
movement there.
bringing back in our best friend Jeffrey.
Bringing back in a reintroduction of Jeffrey is looking pretty good.
This is Jeffrey.
Yeah,
Okay.
oh, Jeffrey.
Okay.
Oh, Tom.
For the uninitiated.
You're our second best friend. This is number one best friend, Jeffrey.
Okay, I won't cry.
Yeah.
So, Tom, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I mean, okay, what I'd like to say right now is that I'm a whole food chef, and that's because I'm a zero waste chef, and also I'm someone who's highly interested in nutrition in terms of like how we eat at home, but also globally. So I would always choose to go for a whole wheat bread whenever I can, because of the nutrient density that we get through the fiber, the wheat, the germ, and everything like that that is still in the flour. Heavily processed white flour is absolutely delicious. There's nothing better than a croissant or baguette that's fluffy and white and wonderful. It's a treat though. It's a simple carb that we absorb like a sugar into our bloodstream, and it gives us energy, and that's great if we need energy, but otherwise we're just going to put that on as weight, right? Whereas a more complex carb, like this nutrient-dense, I think Shipton mill flour that we're using here, is really...
It's heavy. It fills you up for ages.
Yeah.
You eat one good slice of this, you're done for the day.
And is this as easy to knead as like a white dough?
So that's why I wanted to say, and that's kind of why I started on the whole food side of things, because basically, when you're working with a whole wheat bread like this, or even worse, a malted kind of bread with these grains in it, the fiber is cutting through the gluten, which means that that's why whole food bread is often denser. And that's why white bread creates such a fluffy and aerated bread. And so therefore you really have to make sure you get your kneading in and knead it really well to strengthen the gluten, especially when you're using a whole wheat. Also, like, I spent so much time trying to create the perfect San Francisco sourdough with a really high ratio of brown flour or whole wheat flour in it, and it just was almost impossible. So I've gone completely the other direction now. I'm not worried about creating a very airy loaf. I'm embracing the density and flavor profile of these interesting ancient grains and whole wheats, because they've actually, whole wheat, a whole food diet is actually a more flavoursome diet. And so it's about embracing those flavours. And I just wanted to say, we're going to, how much longer do you think we need these for?
I don't think my arms can take any longer. So I'm going to get just the tiniest bit, and you may notice that we didn't put a lot of flour on the bench to begin with. It does just kind of add flour to something that you've already chosen the right amount of water for, so you're just going to dehydrate it again.
Change the hydration.
And if you've done your job right and you've been working, I don't know, for a long time, what feels like about half an hour here kneading.
It's a good arm workout.
Your arms are getting tired, but your dough should also be starting to cling to itself and kind of cleaning up the bench for you anyway. It shouldn't be sloppy. If it's nice and tight and it's got a bit of spring to it, you can get a little bit of flour just to help you, one, get a little bit of the excess stickiness off your hands, or that's what I'm going to do. And all we're testing for now is, so you were talking about the gluten matrix. There is plenty of ways to test it, but for today, because we're trying to do it a little bit quicker than usual, we're going for just a nice little spring. So for me, that means I flatten it out, I'm going to try and make myself a tight little ball because we're testing for how tight it is and we need to test out its tightest form. Kind of like a little dumpling, I guess. Okay, and this is really hard to test if you've got mucky hands. So get the extra dough off your hands, get a little bit of flour, nice tight ball. See that bounce back? For today, that is absolutely all we need. So you've done the hard work, you've put your boiling water in your oven. If you don't have something like that, you can do a very warm place or something warm in your house and cover with a wet tea towel. But for us, these go in our bowls with a little bit of oil, just to stop them from sticking. My happy little ball in there, plate on top to stop it from drying out, and in that oven that you put the boiling water in earlier, which I'm going to get Miss Millie to do.
Thank you.
Because what we haven't talked about is, one, mucky yeasty hands. If you have been touching yeast, you've got it everywhere, it's also kind of going to contaminate a lot of other.
Doesn't it?
Beautiful!
Looking good.
That hard work pays off, you know? Got a beautiful dough.
Thank you.
If you've got mucky hands, now's a good time to give them a very good wash. I say this lovingly, yeast is a bacteria that thrives at body temperature. So give your hands a good wash, give your counter a good clean off. Because now we get to do the fun part. We wait for our dough to grow in the oven. We are going to prep some sandwich fillings. So this is kind of a dealer's choice situation. We've got a few varieties.
Yeah,
We've got what are veritable ploughmans over here to look through. What's your favourite sandwich filling?
Well, I just wanted to say, to kind of finish off my stream of thought, I've brought, as I was saying, I've gone the other direction. I'm embracing the density of of whole foods, and so I brought a taster. I make bread
I love a taster.
I make rye bread every week, and through a sourdough process, and I just thought it'd be nice to kind of bring some of it along to show you. So I'll grab.
Oh my gosh,
awesome.
That sounds amazing. So I think we are going to do just our quick pack down, but now's the time. Think about your sandwich fillings. You don't have to do everything that we are doing. You can just choose one really good one. We're going to do cheese and chutney. We'll do an egg mayo mix, which is a crowd pleaser. Millie doesn't like hard-boiled eggs. I love them. I'll eat the whole thing, no problems. We've got tomatoes. You need to get a lot of soft butter for your bread, and then salt, pepper, maybe some ketchup, Tabasco, everything like that for your eggs. But again, anything that you like, so long as it's not too watery. Oh, I'm very, very excited. There's a chopping board right there.
We can even make a sandwich with this as well, couldn't we?
Excellent. We definitely could.
So if you're using yeast, give your hands a really good wash with antibacterial hand soap. If you haven't got antibacterial spray, you can just use some hot soapy water just to clean down your bench. That's going to kill all the yeast, and then once more with a clean cloth. So I've just gone over with antibac, so now our surfaces are ready to go. Now I'm going to give my hands a good wash as well, just to prevent any cross-contamination.
I know that one says so.
Brilliant. So I'll grab chopping board, we'll show you some of Tom's lovely bread, and then we're going to begin to make all our fillings for this evening session. So first thing we need to do is get some water on to boil if you're making some hard-boiled eggs. So over here, I've got a pot of water that is completely off the heat. So it's cold water. I've got my eggs in about 1 inch of water above the level of the eggs, and it's all cold. So it's good for a reason, because it means firstly I can put my eggs in and I'm not worried about them cracking at all. But we do need to bring them up to a boil. So starting cold, put my eggs in with about 1 inch of water on the top. Now I'm going to bring it up to the boil, and once it hits boiling, I'm then going to set my timer for 8 minutes, and that's for my hard-boiled eggs, because you cannot grate soft-boiled eggs when you're making an egg sandwich. So these need to be nice and hard. So as soon as it comes up to a rolling boil, just like yesterday with our pasta, so big bubbles breaking the surface, I'll turn it down to like a gentle simmer. I can just cook for that remaining 8 minutes, and then we'll drain them.
So I'm going to let you do the honours of slicing up your own beautiful bread.
Well, let's do it later when we make the sandwiches, shall we?
You don't want to show everyone? That's fine.
Well,
but what we should do is...
They can wait.
I can't. No, I'm joking. We are going to discuss... We talked about the ingredients of your bread. So you said you've used a rye flour. We did a wholemeal flour and a malted barley flour. So what does the flour do in bread?
Sorry, that
it's
sounds
the
like
structure. You know, that is bread. Flour is bread. There's a few things that are crucial for bread, like really 4 ingredients, I will say. Today we're doing quick bread, so we use quick yeast. That's what makes it light and fluffy. Rye is notoriously very dense, and same with the wholemeal that we've done. Salt, flavour, but it also helps to kind of spread the yeast around. if you've got a really good flour like we use, the salt can just enhance the flavour of a really nice flour, particularly like we've got those malted barley grains in there, the ancient grain mix, sorry, and the malted barley flour. Spend a bit of money on a nice flour, something that is whole wheat based if you can, something that is going to have good flour, particularly if you're making bread. It's the structure of it, it's everything. And then we've got water, bread's best friend. You want it for steam in your oven, you want it to create those light fluffy bubbles. Your yeast is what use the water to move through the bread. So all those ingredients are crucial, and then anything on top like the oil that we added, just an added bonus. Your oil is going to add a bit of moisture to your crumb, a bit of colour on your crust, and soften it a little bit as well. But anything on top is just an added bonus. For your basic bread, you need water, salt, yeast, and a nice flour. Is that about right?
It is.
That sounds good.
That's correct.
And have you gone 100% rye, dark rye?
Yeah, okay, so if you're new to whole foods, I'd suggest creating a blend. Have we done 100% whole wheat today?
We've done 100% whole wheat.
Okay, so that's going to be that's going to be more dense. Like, you know, I mean, you might see in the supermarket a 50-50 kind of loaf. Okay, I'm not rating that bread. It's like made through the Chorleywood process. It's industrially manufactured. The wheat's it's not going to have the benefits that you would get from a well-grown heritage wheat or other variety. You can buy like Dove's flour and some interesting wheat varieties such as spelt from supermarkets now, or einkorn, starting to explore kind of a diversity of grains is really interesting, but also ratios within the bread. Okay, so a bread roll, we don't want to overcomplicate it, right? It's like a simple thing.
It should be light and fluffy and
we should
all
enjoy
that
it.
good stuff.
So what I'm saying is explore like a ratio of white to brown flour and add in flavour through different flour types if you want to, like einkorn, Emma, which are other varieties of wheat.
Play with fun stuff. If you see something weird, like a grain that you've never seen or a flour that you've never seen, why not use, I don't know, for safety you say 70% your white flour that you love and you're very, very used to using, and then 30% a mix of all the wild and wonderful things that you see and you're a bit shy to try, because you'll get what you need from that 70% white, and then you can do 30%, and then you can slowly edge your way up to 50, 60, whatever. But if you do 70% white, you'll have a happy, light, fluffy bread, and then you get all those awesome flavors from all the different grains and mixes that you can find in your shops. There's really cool stuff out there. Like, pick something funny that you've never heard before and you want to give it a go. It's going to make your bread taste super lovely, and then you get that white bread kind of light fluffiness and the strength and everything.
That's a vigorous boil if I saw one.
That's what we call a vigorous boil.
Jumping out the pot.
I'm going to turn it chill. So I'm going to just turn it down to say just like a high medium heat. So it's just got a few like bubbles going on, and then we're going to set that timer for 8 minutes. And we're definitely not going to forget about it.
So how long have we got? What else do we need to prep?
Well, we've got another 10-15 minutes before we are going to start shaping our bread. So let's start chopping, I guess. Yeah. So you can obviously knead bread. Can you chop?
I can chop.
I can chop.
So first thing we can do is we can do some slices of cheddar, some slices of tomato. So we've got a little serrated knife for our tomatoes today, and we'll do some nice cross-section cuts going across. Tomatoes are really, really wet, and that's usually the enemy of any kind of piece of bread. So got some nice softened butter to act as a barrier between all of that water, but we're also going to do a small insurance policy and also a nice flavour thing. So we're going to slice them, and then we're going to put them on some paper towel to drain with a little bit of salt. So that's going to draw out water, but also help season it from the inside out. So I might give that to you. So if you can just do some nice thin slices. If I show one, you can go on with the rest.
Okay.
So always going to do your claw, so everything is out of the way. And if you can use the sharpest knife you can for tomatoes, because the skin is quite hard to get through if you're using a really dull knife. So just nice thin slices going across towards the top of my tomato. So I'll leave that with you, and then we're going to do our draining.
I'm going to make you chop the herbs, Millie.
Okay.
Because you're the best at it.
Yes, ma'am. So for our egg mayo, I've got some chives and also some spring onions, but you could use one or the other, or you could just totally omit them if you don't like the sound of either of those. Especially for things like chives, you want a really nice sharp knife because they're quite hard to cut without bruising them if you're using something very, very dull. So I'll put my spring onions to the side for now. And again, I'll line them up all together. And then I'm going to do my claw, and I'm just going to rock my knife over them, trying to push all the way through in one motion, and that means I'm actually cutting all the way through them rather than just bruising them or crushing them. So I'm just going to keep going. And this is the same for a spring onion. It's just like a scaled up version of a chive. And same for like leeks and things. They're all part of the same family.
So I've got some nice cheddar cheese.
Here you go.
We are using just a nice organic mature aged cheddar. British if you can. That's lovely cheddar. I know everybody loves cheese, but it's not amazing to bite through like a centimetre block of cheddar. So try and keep it thin, fragile. You can always like double layer it up if you like, but it is, I think it genuinely tastes better if it's got a nice thin slice. And even say you do 2 thin slices as opposed to 1 large. That kind of centimetre chunk is reserved for butter only, if you ask me.
Yeah, Maddie does like to eat her cheese like butter, so you'll see that later
No, my
on.
butter like cheese.
You're right.
This is how you should eat butter.
When you're right, you know?
Yeah, when you're right, you're right. And again, this is dealer's choice. If you have a cheese in your fridge that you want to use up, or a special cheese that you've been saving for a nice occasion, why not on freshly made bread rolls with an obscene amount of butter and really nice ingredients. I think everyone will agree that a sandwich is really best made fresh. So do everything in advance, kind of like what we're doing today. Dry out your tomatoes. We're going to do some cucumber as well, but then assemble it just before you eat it, so your bread doesn't get soggy and all your ingredients lose their kind of freshness.
So with spring onions, you only have to trim off like the barest tip. You just don't have the root on, just like our onions, but you don't need to trim off an excessive amount. And I'm just going to cut across these so I got nice fine slices. So what I'm doing for my prep is our egg mayo. So we're going to have a little bit of spring onion, a little bit of chive, but again, you can do one or the other if that suits you. So we're going to have our tomato slices arranged. I'll spread this out a little bit. So if you want to go all your slices on here and spread them out. And we're going to do a little bit of salt. My handy little salt covers. So we are draining our slices of tomato to make sure they're not too wet, not going to make any sandwiches too soggy.
So beautiful.
If you can, use the best tomatoes you can get. They're usually quite bland if you get them in England out of season. So this is something to be making in the height of summer when they're at their best. They're also going to be cheaper, better for the environment because they're not being shipped from a million miles away, hopefully coming from somewhere like Italy, if possible, or even from the UK sometimes if you're getting lucky. So, coming to the end.
British Tomato just sent me a load of tomatoes and they were so ripe.
Oh yeah?
Ooh,
They
nice.
were from their greenhouse.
I know Isle of
obviously.
Wight have some really lovely ones.
Yeah, I visited the farm there actually.
Ah, nice.
Love
that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think as a response to food sustainability and the emissions that are associated with greenhouses and growing in the UK, British Tomato and other growers who grow in glass houses are actually doing quite a lot to improve the energy efficiency of their spaces. So they're using renewables to kind of like, and then capturing any heat or energy that's kind of released from the process of growing the tomatoes as well, and then using it for other
Amazing.
means. It's pretty incredible.
So I'm going to put another piece of towel on top and just press that. So we're just going to try and drain as much water as we can, and even just now pressing this on top, they're already releasing water. So they're going to sit and drain to the side. And now we're going to move on to our cucumbers.
Lovely. They're kind of like Mediterranean vegetable like tomatoes. So, I mean, my choice would be to wait until they're in season and growing well. But of course, you know, who doesn't like a tomato year round? So if you're going to, just enjoy it as a treat.
Enjoy it as a treat, yes. No, we do our best. I mean, we talked about it on Monday night. We will only use tomatoes when they are in season, otherwise we're using canned tomatoes, but they are quite nice when they're
And they can be just as good when they're canned because they are picked in season.
Yeah, they've got a nice flavour.
I use sun-dried tomatoes sometimes to add that tomatoey flavour. Like, I do a winter taboulet.
Ooh,
So
Is that the Moro
normally
recipe?
No, my recipe.
Okay.
I'm a recipe writer.
No, I know.
Are you
It's just
a chef?
we have a recipe that's a winter taboulet as well, that's what I was wondering.
Okay, so yeah, basically winter taboulet. Normally taboulet is like cucumbers, spring onions, loads of parsley, a little bit of couscous, and tomatoes, right? But in winter, obviously, if you're going to stick to more seasonal ingredients, then some chopped sun-dried tomatoes are really nice.
Yum!
And you could even do that like in a sandwich like this if you wanted to.
It'd be delightful. So we've got our last kind of thing, our last ingredient to prep similar to our pickled cucumbers. You can use a variety. You can use your large kind of grater, like a cheese grater, something on the side like this. We've got something like this. If you don't have any of these, you can always slice them quite thinly with a knife. Just that similar scenario, we're going to try and drain off all the water with a bit of salt and paper towel, so that when we pop them on the sandwich, they are ready to go. Which should we use? You want to slice?
I will slice.
You will slice.
Feeling like some nice fills today. So again, just like yesterday with our cucumber salad, keeping my fingers really well drawn back. But today I'm going to go for as thin as I can, because we don't want any chunky bits. They'll have quite a soft texture once they've been salted and drained. So grab yourself a colander or something like that to put your slices in at the end. But we want to go nice and thin so that they're quite soft. Our ones yesterday were quite crunchy, which is lovely for a salad, but we're going for a slightly different texture today. Ooh, you might get some donated to the
What
floor.
mayonnaise are you using?
We are using a homemade one, but if you can't do that at home, you don't know how to make one maybe, just try and buy one with really simple ingredients that you recognize. Hopefully that has eggs in it, because that is the basis of most mayonnaises. And yeah, that's all we can ask for really. If you're using one that has lots of gums and thickeners and starches, it's not really mayonnaise at that point, it's just some sort of funny emulsion. So try and find one that you can recognize all the ingredients for.
So I just wrote a piece for The Guardian. Called, like we're running a new series called The Food Filter.
Okay.
And each week a different member of the team looks at and analyzes 10 different varieties of a product. So I just did kimchi, it just came out. But before that I did mayonnaise. Actually, sorry, I'm not sure if mayonnaise has been published yet. But it'll be
Insider info.
It'll be published very soon. But anyway, it was so, I mean, as a chef of 25 more years, I basically have only ever made my own mayonnaise. Like, for me, it's like incomparable, like to what you can normally buy.
Really, really, really good.
And you know, whenever anyone's given me a Hellmann's, okay, I had it during my childhood, and I sound like a complete chef snob, right? But the truth is, it's so much better when you make it yourself, but of course, then you've got this kind of like bowl of mayonnaise you have to use up.
Yes.
Interesting thing.
It's hard to make a small amount of mayonnaise.
Yes, it is. But tasting the different mayonnaises available, I've changed my mind. I found a few varieties that I really liked.
Like?
Well, surprisingly, so everyone loves the Japanese variety Kewpie. Anyway, I think they've dropped their quality because they've added, it's a more processed mayonnaise, and it used to include, I think, sake vinegar. Now,
really?
the UK version doesn't, or at least the one that I bought from the supermarket. And there was another variety called Kenko, similar to the coffee brand, but something else entirely, and it had sake lees in it. Sake lees are the mash from making
so it's got that same
the sake and the vinegar, so it's adding that extra depth of flavor. So it was a really intense, interesting mayonnaise to try. But then we tried loads of like basics, like Heinz Seriously Good mayonnaise and Hellmann's and things like that, and Stokes. Most of them were disappointing, but there was a few treats in there that you'll have to check out the column for to find out.
Yes, sir.
If you don't know Kewpie, it's just like a slightly sweeter version of like UK classic mayonnaise, which likes used in lots and lots of Asian recipes. But yeah, we're just using our own lovely homemade one today. I've just salted all my cucumbers, so I tried to slice them as thin as I can, but I'm not perfect at it. So some are a little thinner, some a little thicker, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's all practice. So I'm going to pop another sheet on top, and then just going to drain again, just like our tomatoes are doing on the side. And Maddie, do you want to show them the egg mayo's bases?
Yeah, this time has gone off.
Oh.
Has it? I said we wouldn't forget about it, but we kind of had.
So you can also make vegan mayonnaises. We were talking about this yesterday, actually, just before we started filming. So you can make them with aquafaba. So this is used by draining a tin of chickpeas. You can also use things like soy milk, anything with any of these emulsifiers in them. And emulsifiers can be kind of a scary scientific word, but really it's just anything that can bind oil and water together. So you don't have to use egg yolks, but they are often used because they're a very, very strong binder of mixing both oil and water together.
But obviously there's a lot of synthetic emulsifiers that are used in processes these days, and they are ultra-processed foods that we should ideally avoid if we can.
No, totally agree. Yeah.
Are we able to put links in the notes? Can we add a link I've got an aquafaba recipe in my waste not column.
That's above my pay grade. You can ask the boss.
Okay.
For now, we're going to check our doughs. We talked about this session is a little bit pushed for time. Ideally, the scenario is in your bowl or however you're proving your dough, it has doubled in size. Ours has barely moved. So I'm going to say, even though we're pushing them today, it's moved a little bit. Even though we're pushing them today, these still need another 5 to 10 minutes before we can even think about shaping them. So they're going to go back to sleep. But you can see there is a tiny, well, it's going to slide. There's a little bit of bubbles on the bottom. So it is kind of, it's getting to a nice stage where it's got a bit of heat to it and those bubbles are going to start to rise. We're looking for a light and airy dough, something's a little bit fluffy. So we've got another, I'm going to say 5 minutes before you, because we do have to start shaping them, absolutely. But the upside is these eggs are done, the time has gone off. But can you peel eggs when they're boiling? No, they're going to be super, super hot. So I'm just going to run the excess water off, put a bit of cold water, and they are easiest to peel when they're warm. So we're going to get that done straight away. Mill's going to grab a big bowl and get our mayo. It's tasting time. So if you have been around the past couple of nights, we always like to taste hygienically, which means we have a bowl and lots of spoons so we can taste it over and over again. Make sure we're getting the most out of our homemade mayo, which we think is the best. We love the homemade mayo. And if you are making it, we do use pasteurized eggs just to make sure it's super, super safe. Most of the eggs in England are vaccinated. All eggs in England are vaccinated against salmonella anyway. But
you just have to look for a little red lion, and that means the whole flock has been vaccinated. Has been vaccinated against salmonella. So if you can see that, it means they're vaccinated against them, they should be safe to eat, but you can actually buy pasteurized eggs in the supermarket relatively easily these days. So yeah, that's what we've been doing, just to make sure everyone's super, super safe. So I've got myself a coarse box grater, but you can of course use a knife, you could use a fork to do all the chopping and peeling. So I've got my knives and things ready to go. We're gonna be peeling our eggs, chopping them up with our grater, and then we will mix together a lovely seasoning. So, I was going to throw this to you actually, but I realised that's not a really good idea. One for you. Thank you.
If you love hard-boiled eggs, you can do lots of this. If you don't love them, like Millie, I'm really running you out tonight. You can always just do a few. Usually one per person is a good kind of amount.
And they keep quite well in the fridge, so you can batch cook them. So get all those little bits of shell off. If you want, you can have like I've actually got a little jug of water here, so I'm going to rinse mine off just to make sure there are no bits of shell, because although we like extra calcium, I don't want that in my...
That's a nice looking egg.
So we're going to grate them in, just so we get nice uniform pieces, but of course you can chop them, you can use a knife, you can use a fork, whatever you have on hand. Mine are a little bit hot, so just be careful. Make sure you run them under cold water for at least a minute. You can even pop some ice cubes in if you have extras on hand.
And luckily we've done all the hard work.
So how do you make your mayonnaise?
Ooh.
Millie's going to run through this.
All right, so mayonnaise, sometimes talk about it as having two things that don't get along well together, and then taking them to the marriage counsellor. So we've got oil and water. In this situation, we've got maybe a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of vinegar as our acid. So that's our water. And then we have, of course, oil. So we've got oil and water, two things that just do not mix together at all. So to bind them together, we add an egg yolk. So you start with a basis of egg yolks, some mustard is also a really nice thing to add for spice. It's quite traditional in a mayonnaise, and also a really great binder. But we're going to stream in a little bit of oil, and then you mix it together until it's like lovely and thick and looks creamy and lovely, and then boom.
And then boom. Okay, so let's get this baby together. If you love mayo, you're going to go plenty. If not, you can start minimal. Definitely all your herbs. Definitely all your herbs. Something, spring onion, chives, everything like that. We've got some ketchup, a couple of classics, Tabasco for a bit of heat. We've got some vegan Worcester, but this is kind of up to you. You're looking for a little bit of heat, maybe a little bit of sweetness, a little bit sour, something like that. And of course, plenty of salt and pepper. Let's talk, what's an appropriate amount of mayonnaise? I'm talking...
Oh, how long is a piece of string?
Right.
It needs to be spreadable, so don't stinge, but also it can't be super sloppy, it'll just ooze straight out of your sandwich. So Maddie's making me mix it even though she knows this is my most hated filling in the world. You're a nice lady.
I'm the keeper of the condiments.
So this is actually not too far off, spreadable, which is good, but not too sloppy. I think that was pretty, we've done this before.
I have done this before. I did say it's my favourite filling. I also love Worcester, so I'm going to put plenty in.
So Worcestershire, it's got like a little bit of tamarind, it's like a little bit sour, a little bit sweet, a little bit tangy.
A little bit of heat from your Tabasco. Of course, you can put more in. There's no... the ketchup adds a little bit of sweet, so it's still kind of on the same flavour palette, but just a little bit of sweetness. And these bottles are going to be a little or a lot. You never quite know. Good hit of salt. Okay, that was maybe a big hit of salt, but we'll see.
So most mayonnaises already come with a little bit of vinegar and also a little bit of salt in them. So don't go too crazy on the salt to start because they are already seasoned. Same with any condiments we're using tonight. They are all having a little bit of salt and usually a little bit of vinegar. So hopefully seasoning shouldn't be too far off. Once again, we got our little tasting spoon bowl just so we can be tasting nice and hygienically.
Do you want to taste it?
Sure, thank you.
So no double dipping, even if you're at home. We've got lots and lots of spoons, but you can just wash them up in between.
Sometimes chefs taste them
That's
their
awful.
hand, don't they?
Hate that.
Licking their
Really
hand.
grubby.
And then they go like this.
Yeah.
It's not bad. I think it needs more Tabasco, just quietly. That's just me. And maybe, I think it's quite...
Fiery.
Quite fiery.
It's
It's
already
not
got
too
a kick
far
in the
off.
back of the throat.
Which
But-
bit's fiery?
The Tabasco.
Oh.
What else?
But she's adding more.
I
I'm
know.
adding more. Well, you're not eating
Personal
them.
I think,
No, I'm not.
The moral of the story is like, when you're cooking, especially something as simple as this, it's all about your own taste buds and what you like, and using every ingredient as a seasoning, not just salt and pepper. You can add more egg or mayo. Think of everything as like a balance to kind of create your own perfect dish.
All right.
So let's have a look at our bread.
It's business time now. So at this stage, we are going to shape these breads kind of no matter what. If you have the time, these can take easily another 15 minutes or more. You're looking for something that rises up to about double in size. I guess I won't steal your bread. There you go.
You don't want to switch?
No.
Okay.
So,
Any flour on the surface? I would normally sprinkle a little bit.
we can do a little bit.
As long as it doesn't get incorporated into the bread, you're not increasing the hydration.
There we go. So, flip it out. You can see, okay, I'm pretty happy. There are some bubbles there. So, the proving process has easily started. That's called your first proof. So, I said we're using quick yeast or instant yeast. Anything with quick or instant yeast, you need to proof twice. Once in your bowl, which we've done. And what I'm doing is I'm flattening it out, getting rid of all the first bubbles. And then I'm going to make myself a nice thick kind of, I don't know, sausage. So I'm going to cut this into 5, which I think Millie will agree, and you're about to agree as well. Probably one of the worst numbers to cut into. But it makes 6 quite small bread rolls if you're doing a half recipe, 5 good sized bread rolls, or 4 kind of monsters. So we're going to go 5, a happy medium. And again, if you're in a bakery, you can weigh this up, but we're just going to cowboy it or eye it, my favorite type of thing. And now we shape. So if you want a nice bread roll, pick a nice side. If you need a little bit of flour, absolutely go for it. Flattening it out, something like this. Tuck all your edges in, just to give you a bit of a rough start, because that is round, and then from there you can perfect it. So you can go using your bench, just smear it on the bench, and trying to keep your base on the bottom, or you go.
I was thinking, for the sake of research, let's leave one unshaped.
See what it does?
what happens.
Because what this is doing is just creating a bit of gluten. So it's going to make it nice and round, make it glutinous, but it's also going to help, the gluten traps your yeast bubbles in. So the more glutinous it is, the kind of like more yeast can be trapped inside. But if you've done that kind of tuck in that we did before, again, just a rough one, you can also try this, which is just like an undercut, just to tighten it up and help you keep that nice round shaped ball. But these are all going to be beautiful. Honestly, if you put these on the tray like this, they will also be beautiful. These are going to take a lot of air from that second proof. So we can do a few more, we're doing sandwiches, we can do a few more rolls and do a few more flat pieces if you like.
Double roll. Impressive.
We've got, again, Should we test one wholemeal like this? A nice flat kind of bun?
We could see what happens. It looks like it might even prove like a ciabatta.
Yeah. So this is your second proof that we are just about to start. So in that same oven, you might need to refresh your water. It's already moving. This will take slightly less time. And so if you are doing the hand rolling, I'm pushing it away from myself and then I'm bringing it towards myself and using my fingers to tuck in and using the bench to smear it. So this is kind of just playing with your food like I talked about before. You're kind of wanting to keep everything tucked underneath if you can. And I'm going to need a bit more flour.
Yeah, so this process is called tensioning. And what you're doing is you're forming all of the gluten strands into a tension and kind of elastic band around the bread, which is going to seal it and help it prove evenly. So,
ciabatta style, beautiful.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting to kind of like fold this in like this, which begins the tensioning process. This is on a micro scale, right? If you're doing this on a huge loaf, it's actually easier to demonstrate. You want a dry surface for sure, because it needs to catch, doesn't it? As you're basically just kind of moving it around. You can also do it with the bench knife.
Yeah, and particularly if it's very like wet, you can kind of, like an undercut. So you're kind of attempting to stretch this one little bit, imagine, say the top half or the top third. These bits you want to tuck underneath, but all around in a circular motion.
I feel like when you see people shape like pizzas and stuff on TV, they often have a huge amount of flour on their bench, but they are working with very, very wet doughs.
Flour, yeah.
Whereas this is like nice and manageable. It's like quite tacky, but not too sticky. So it's a nice middle ground. So that's why you haven't seen us like splashing flour all over our countertops.
Do you know what the hydration is, roughly?
This one,
60?
It looks about 60, 65, doesn't it?
I would say mine's
and
more
that's
like 65.
when you're starting out and making bread for the first time, that's a really good ratio to start with. A ratio, I mean, have we explained ratios yet? No.
So we're going to pop these in our proving oven once more. That oven that is turned off with boiling water in it, so it's nice and steamy and moist. So it can go in for prove number 2.
So when you're talking about ratios, it's called a baker's percentage, and it's a really interesting way to work out what ingredients to add to your flour. So your flour is your first and main ingredient, and that's your 100%. So say we're working with 100 grams of flour, which would make one roll. You might add a ratio of 65% water, which if we're using 100 grams, is 65 grams or milliliters of water. And so you can add other things like ratios too. Yeah. It's slightly more technical approach, but actually if you start to get into bread, it starts to simplify the process and demystify it.
Yeah, so today we are doing kind of one of the more simple varieties of bread. So I talked about the 4 ingredients that you must have, and then we've got that little bit of oil. And then we are doing the quick version as well. So say, for example, you mix it, you prove it in a bowl, you shape it, you prove it again, and then you bake it. That's like the set recipe, bing, bang, bosh. That's how you do it. You should be able to, if you were doing everything like the right amount of time, for example, we wanted that bowl to double in size. We're going to go for double in size again before we bake it. You should be able to do it in under 2.5 hours, let's say. Tonight we're pushing it all into 1 hour. 2 hours is a reasonable time, but there are a million different recipes that will extend the proving process. It will use really cold water. It might put it in the fridge overnight. So this is just a really simple way to kind of get into it. And I will say, if you've put your love into it and you've got yeast in it, that's probably it will turn out lovely. Freshly baked bread is one of the most delicious things that you can eat, particularly if you've made it yourself. And just these simple ingredients that we've got here to go on will just make it will be super simple, super lovely. You will enjoy it no matter what, and particularly because you've made it. No matter how your rolling is, that's just practice. No matter how your rolling is, so long as you've got your bubbles inside from your yeast, it's going to be beautiful. I am 100% certain.
And we are also recapping this again tomorrow to make pizza. So even if it didn't work out perfect this time, we're going to go all over again with white bread. So it's going to be a little more simple with the kneading because it's got much more gluten, so it will come together very, very fast. So don't worry if you felt like you were kneading for 100 years today. It will be a little bit quicker tomorrow, and we'll show you all over again.
No, we're going to knead for 100 years tomorrow as well. By the end of this week, we're going to be super, super muscly.
Yeah.
So now we're setting up for baking, because as the rolls are a little bit smaller, so they're not in that bulk prove or the prove in the bowl, they're going to move a little bit quicker. So again, we're looking for something double in size, but the main thing that we're looking for is it's light and fluffy. So the yeast has created bubbles, there's bubbles inside. It should, from here, we're hoping to get it in about 10 minutes, and then we'll put it into a nice hot oven. For you guys at home, that means if you've got a really slow oven to preheat, you need to turn it on. The hotter the oven, the quicker they cook, which means they're going to get like a nice big growth in the oven. They're going to have a nice thin skin, but still a moist center. If you cook bread rolls or anything, say at like 160 degrees, you're just going to dry them out completely through the center. If you cook them at something 200 or above, they cook quickly. The outside is crisp, the inside is moist, and of course it takes less time, which is even better. So we have set our oven to, and again, we are bullying it a little bit. It's going to get a bit brown.
Maddie is the meanest.
We've got it at 230, but if you are maximizing your time and you're making sure that it's gone to double in size on the first proof, and again double in size on the second proof, you can go to something maybe a bit more gentle, 200, 210, 215. They're all lovely for those small kind of round balls, dinner rolls, ciabatta style things that we've got going on. But again, we're going to push this through. If you have any questions, you can always send them through, but for the most part, if you're not tracking with us kind of as we go, you can always watch it back. It's going to go through. You can watch it as many times as you like, pick up a few pointers that maybe you missed on the first time around. Bread is a wild world of wonderful things. There's a million questions that you can ask and never have any of them answered, and even once they are answered, there's more to ask after that. So we've got our oven on 230, we've got our rolls proving.
We've also got some butter softening. This is nice and soft now. So I think we can try a little bit with some of Tom's bread.
Oh,
a little mid-session snack.
Mid-session snack, my favourite.
Yeah.
Right.
We finally get to eat the bread.
So it looks like you've got some seeds in there as well.
Yeah, so this is a very traditional Danish rye bread.
Okay.
And it's a sourdough. It's made with 100% rye. I've got a flour mill at home.
Wow.
Which is
What?
a lovely piece of kit. It's my favourite piece of kit.
That's so exciting.
It's a Como mill. They're a couple of £100. I use it every week.
That's amazing.
I even grind my oatmeal in it for porridge every morning.
Oh, very nice.
It's really special. And you're getting okay, so we've got an industrialized food system, right, with white flour at one end that's made in through the Chorleywood process into like a kind of sliced bread, supermarket bread, which is delicious, but lacking nutrients. Whereas this is like the other end of the scale. Like I basically try and create a baseline in my home where like our kind of staples are like hyper nutritious.
Maddie,
because
why
my
don't you show the
9-month-old will or 6-year-old, if they're like they want some bread and they don't want anything else but toast, I'm really happy to give them this because it's full of nutrients, seeds, there's pumpkin, sunflower, sesame in there. And you can add whatever you like.
Hearty.
I'm about to write this up into a recipe for The Guardian as a store cupboard recipe. So you can actually get really inventive with the grains you start to put in it.
Find some fun ones.
So yeah, into a loaf like this, you'd put about 150 grains or nuts and seeds or even raisins. So I like to kind of clear up my store cupboard and use different things like some walnuts or quinoa or millet. I had some like millet that was just sitting on my shelf for ages. Millet's another grain. It's a grass seed, and it's just, I don't like it that much, right? It's meant to be a super sustainable.
Nobody likes it.
It's a super sustainable grain, and it's interesting to mix it into things like in a smaller ratio. But it worked really well in the bread.
There you go.
There's none of that in here today. It's just those seeds and the rye, and I made this yesterday. It's a slow process, so I keep the sourdough in the fridge for the week, and then it's so active, all I have to do is feed it about lunchtime, and then by the evening it's risen and it's ready to make the bilth, which is the next part of the process where you kind of start to mix up the rye, and then I weigh everything out. So in the morning I just mix it all together, and the best thing about this bread is it's no knead.
Aha,
So
the best.
I just mix it up in the morning.
What if I want big muscles?
Yeah.
Well, I have nothing against kneading, but if you like, I would
It's
not
hard
make
work.
bread.
No, I know.
I make
I'm
bread
only
twice a
joking.
week, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing it
if
I had to knead it. But yeah, we can try a piece if you like.
I have a little bit of butter here.
And
a
it's,
little bit of salt.
I mean, I use this bread for everything, but it's obviously it's a traditional Danish bread and recipe, and you can use it I mean, it's quite nice to top with like smoked salmon, things like that. I would recommend using wild salmon if you're going to use salmon for sustainability reasons.
Are we all about to see how much butter I'm willing to put on a small slice of bread?
It's going to be 50-50 bread butter.
50-50
I like my
butter.
bread, my butter cold, like a slab, like you.
Yeah,
have.
yeah,
Oh,
slice
yeah,
it
no
like
teeth
cheese.
marks.
Slice it like
Yeah,
cheese.
I mean, this is better for spreading like in rolls and stuff.
Yeah, I like bread with my butter. All right. Respectable amounts.
Okay, so I should say there's no salt in this because
Aha, okay.
I feed it to my whole family, including my 9-month-old.
Okay.
So that's one of the brilliant things about cooking your own food is you can obviously
Tailor.
add the amount of salt and sugar you'd like to things. I find that it has a natural sweetness anyway. Would you like to
Right,
I'd love
it's quite
some.
sweet as well. I am definitely going to put salt on top because I love salted butter, and we use unsalted butter here
So-
just as a cooking basis.
And like most things, salt enhances flavors, but you don't really want to be feeding extra salt to your 9-month-old.
No, I hear you're not supposed to do that. I wouldn't know, but
Yeah, me and Maddie love our butter.
But it's got a really full flavor and I think a real natural
I love the
sweetness.
texture of the seeds.
it's actually extremely moist. And I think a lot of the breads in the shops that we're talking about, they have a lot of UPFs or like fake kind of emulsifiers, preservatives, everything like that.
Conditioners, all the sort of weird things you can't pronounce.
Hydrogenated fats, la 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 la. But other things that can keep your bread moist. So say, how long would you keep this? Bar you haven't
Indefinitely.
Yeah.
I mean it lasts a week and actually it just firms up and makes amazing toast. I never throw any bread away ever. Obviously, being a zero waste chef, but I'll always I'd say that leftover bread has become a key ingredient in my household.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll keep bread ends in a cloth bag in the bread bin or hang them up and then use them in various dishes, like to make everything from like pasta, pastelli,
I make
di
strata.
brodo or
Everything
strata.
in, pour it with a lot of cheese, a lot of eggs and
Strata's
milk.
so fun.
Soak it up.
I like frying breadcrumbs in olive oil and then
But what is
sprinkle on top of
strata for
anything.
those?
Strata is savoury bread and butter pudding. So lots of cheese, lots of herbs, all the good stuff. Soak it overnight.
Eggs and milk.
All your ugly breads, just chuck it in a tray. Eggs and milk on top. Soak it over. We can talk about that later. We've got more important things to worry about, i.e. bread. So again, we are pushing this through very, very quickly. These could always take more time. They're more time to prove, double in size. I'm going to do my favorite test, which is the jiggle test. That just lets you know if there's a little bit of air inside. You can see this one, and this one. They've got a good jiggle, they've got some air. These are going in the oven no matter what right now. If yours are not jiggling, or they feel a little bit dense, or they haven't doubled in size, give them 10, 15, 20 more minutes, whatever they need. These are getting bullied today. They're going straight in that nice hot oven for maybe 10 minutes. We'll have a look at them, see what they look like in 5 minutes. Thank you, Millie. And then now we prepare to eat. So we have done our mixing all at the beginning. We mixed, we kneaded for what felt like hours, even though it was probably only 5 minutes. Until your arms are sore, you've got a nice springy dough. So we talked a little bit about gluten. We did a good mix. We put it in our bowl in the oven with a bowl of boiling water to do your first proof. Should double in size. Should be light and fluffy. We were doing half recipes. Yours might be bigger. And then we shaped it. So today we did bread rolls, but you could do a loaf. You can do anything you like. Have a go at something that you want to do. And then we're going to do our second proof, which we just had a quick look at. Again, double in size, light and fluffy. Should be 20 minutes at least, maybe a little bit more, half an hour for bread rolls. And then in a nice hot oven for 10 minutes at a minimum. We've got 230, so ours are going to be quite crispy on top. And then we're going to get all these beautiful fillings that have been drying out, soaking up that salt, getting ready to put on our beautiful hot fresh bread when it comes out.
So we've got our drained cucumbers and also our drained tomatoes. So they're looking much, much drier, but most importantly, these should taste nicely seasoned at this point. So you've had your lump of water here that's now transformed into very like green cucumbery flavored lump of water, but not nearly as wet as before. And even the stuff on the paper towel's not looking too wet. So we're looking good here. We've got some lovely chutney that we make here, but you can just buy like a nice store-bought chutney that doesn't have any nasty fillers or ultra-processed ingredients.
Our chutney is extremely flavoursome. So it's very spicy, very acidic, but absolutely delicious. But we don't need too much. Just a little will be perfect.
So this pairs really, really nice with cheddar. So we're going to have cheese and chutney like classic Ploughman's. We've got our Maddie's favourite, egg mayo. We've got our softened butter. If you need to add a little salt to that, if you're using unsalted butter, you can also season your butter a little bit. But anyways, we've got so many delicious things, but use what you have in the fridge. If you have another kind of hard cheese, you could use that. You don't have to stick to cheddar. If you've got some lovely soft goat's cheese, that's also very nice. Other things you could add in, maybe some lettuce for a bit of crunch, especially if you're trying to add a few more veggies into your everyday meal.
Should we make up one on
Yeah,
this lovely ride?
what a good idea.
Just to show how much butter you should use. Are you left-handed? Or do I cut things funny? You're left-handed. That makes way more sense. Would you say a centimetre or a half?
Or a thinner.
Nice thin.
A thinner slice.
Yeah.
Have you
Because
seen
of those beautiful.
the German rye bread that you see in supermarkets? It's quite thin because it's denser.
And we talked about kind of like keeping yourself full, keeping your energy. So these breads, like the whole meal, whole grains, less processed, they keep you full forever. They're like, this is energy for a whole day. It's very slow burning energy. Dealer's choice.
Actually had like slightly Marmite-y taste to me because of all those flowers and things you put in. And I love Marmite.
Yeah.
It's like my
It's kind
perfect.
of malty,
Yeah.
but there's no malt in it. Traditionally, it might have blackstrap molasses in it
Nice.
or some sugar. I've removed that because I wanted to reduce the sugar.
So we'll do the same with our sandwiches, which need a little bit of time in the oven. But basically your butter is not just for flavour and deliciousness. It is also to kind of
Waterproofing.
seal. You're waterproofing your bread. Yeah, that's exactly right. Actually, it's a great way of putting
Maddie's
it.
got her spackle.
Oh, yeah, so this little bit of butter is kind of like sealing your bread so that anything you put on it, that even though we have dried it out, there's still so much more water. So this is kind of sealing your bread to make sure that any excess water that comes off your tomatoes, your cucumber, everything like that is kind of going to have a hard time soaking into your bread because nothing's worse than a soggy tomato sandwich.
You'll find as well that this kind of more wholemeal bread is more robust, so it can handle the water that might come from a tomato, whereas like a roll or white roll from the supermarket would get
It
very
disintegrates,
mushy
yeah.
quite quickly, wouldn't it?
No, I agree.
What's a classic?
Ploughman's.
Cheese and tomato? Cheese and
Almonds.
chutney?
Yeah.
Everything?
My favourite.
Well,
No,
yeah.
Keep it simple.
Grilled cheese.
Grilled
stick it in the
cheese,
oven.
yeah. I'm
So-
going to go cheese and chutney just as like a very, very classic little dish, and also your bread is like nice and square and the cheese is nice and square, so I think it's going to look quite lovely. Little smear, like I said, the chutney is very, very powerful. Very powerful indeed. So I'm going to put heaps on. No. And then we've got ourselves a beautiful little sandwich, just like that. I think it's worth to be said, yeah, lovely and fresh, great ingredients. I'm going to see what our bread's doing in the oven and then see what we have left. I'm going to cook these babies. I'm going to slice this up for us to eat now.
Oh, lovely.
Little finger sandwiches, like for a 9-month-old. I actually
Very
don't
cute.
know, like
Afternoon
about
tea.
9-month-old.
Would it be nice to talk a little bit about my food philosophy and
Yeah, jump in.
food sustainability?
Of course, love to hear about that.
It feels like we've got a few minutes. How long till the bread's ready?
Maddie, how long's on the bread? So let me just have a quick look in the oven. They are rising, which is great. If you've got a glass-fronted oven, you can just have like a little
great.
peek without actually opening your door. And they're looking like they puffed up, which is lovely, nice and round. We're just looking for them to take on a little bit more colour, so maybe another couple more minutes.
And we've got colour on the bottom, colour on the top. All these sandwiches that we made today, they are really good fresh, but that layer of butter means they will keep even better for lunches the next day. So make them up like in the night time before, send them off with your kids, and if you've got this lovely like super moist rye seeded bread that can last a couple of days even. Just soak up the moisture, soak up the good flavours. But yeah, do go on.
Sorry, yeah. I mean, well, what I wanted to talk about a little bit was
Sure.
I basically have been working in food sustainability for about 10 or 15 years since I started basically doing these big food waste banquets. and realized that, you know, food waste was just the tip of the iceberg, and that
it's-
really, you know, there's this whole complex food system that we interact with around the dinner table every time we eat. And most recently, kind of like one of the topics I've been interested in and feels relevant today is soil health and its connection to the gut microbiome and the gut's health.
Yes.
Because essentially you've got this kind of like microbiota or gut biome in the soil that essentially the healthier that is, the healthier the planet is, the healthier our guts are.
So it's a building.
And I noticed the other day you did a panel about UPF and
Yeah, we
ultra-processed
did.
foods.
Yeah.
And so this totally feeds into that.
Yeah, that kind of kicks
yeah,
off
we,
this
we
whole.
actually did kind of, it kind
whole
of was like
evening.
came full circle. It kind of pulled in, started with, food talk, UPFs, and kind of loosely based around health, but it pulled in so many different things. Yes, gut health, soil, everything like farming and everything like that. It pulled in so many different.
Is it available online?
It is available online.
Not
It is
Not yet.
Well, I guess inspired by that and the work that I do, I thought it'd be interesting to talk a little bit about the importance of biodiversity, because at the end of the day, like, why do we care about food sustainability and where our food comes from? Because of biodiversity, all life on Earth, right? And the fact that our planet is an ecosystem that we are entirely connected to and is really a symbiotic relationship between us humans and planet Earth, and it basically drills down to the soil itself and the health of the soil itself, and that is entirely connected to the bread that you eat and the grains that you cook or use and the vegetables. And so what I try and do is increase the biodiversity of the ingredients that I eat, and therefore to increase the health of my own gut microbiome, which I mean, Chris Van Tulleken has touched on his book. He was on the panel, right?
Yeah.
And then of course Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall with his book, I think it's How to Eat 30 Ingredients or something like that. I've forgotten the title. But you can add that diversity into your ingredients, everything you make.
Even spices count, so it doesn't have to be like
Definitely.
a tomato or lettuce. If you add in a couple of spices into like a lovely homemade curry, that's automatically like 10 extra ingredients that you've
and not just those
added.
same 5 spices.
Yeah.
Again, go out and find a spice that you've
Yeah,
never
diversity
seen
is
before,
the
like,
spice of life, as they say.
Or put 3-5 different seeds in your bread and use a variety of different flours when you're making your rolls.
Definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the bread version of Eat the Rainbow. We talked when we were
Definitely,
doing the roasting. Eat the Rainbow. We had about 12 different types of roast veggies, and it did look like a rainbow. And this is the bread version. So put your 12 different rainbow varieties in your bread in this, lovely seeded bread. Use all the different grains you can find. Some you know, some you don't know. It's always nice to try new things, and there is so much available now. So we are going to have a look at our bread. We're going to see what it looks like when you're baking at home. For the smaller things, one golden on top and golden underneath is
We've
quite
got some
lovely.
golden colour.
Hey, we're not too far off.
Checking the bottom as well. So you've got brown bottoms, which is a good start. And they should feel nice and light in your hand. They're very
And if you
hot, so I'm not
tap
going to
them,
pick it up.
They should sound
So-
hollow. So that's what we're looking for. The more dense your bread is, the more it needs. If you've got basically anything larger than a bread roll, I would say, you need to be giving it a good amount of time. It's not going to take 15 minutes. It's going to take 15 minutes to get golden, and then at least another 20 minutes to cook completely through. You should be able to lift it up. It should be light, and it should sound hollow. These are quite dense because they're wholemeal, but it should sound hollow. It basically should sound like there's not a big, dense ball of uncooked dough in the center. It's a bit harder for your bigger things. If you're stressed, leave it in the oven for a little bit longer. It's not going to harm it too much.
So if we crack one open, it is hot. Ideally, you let bread cool down all the way. So let it cool down before you start putting your fillings in. But if you want to eat them immediately, like we do now, it's not a problem. So I'm going to do, what should I do in mine? Cucumber?
Egg mayo.
Oh.
It's interesting, this one that we didn't shape reminds me of those hotel rolls you get.
Yeah, they do. That one actually looks quite good. So yeah, you can shape them like quite rustically, or you can go for a slightly neater
these
finish.
are the ones that we didn't really roll at all. They would be technically a little bit more, slightly more dense inside, but they are still going to be delicious. And they're light and fluffy, like they're gorgeous. It's fresh bread. Everything's lovely when it comes to fresh bread.
And bread, when you've just cooked it, it's actually, in some ways, it's not finished cooking. It needs to rest and cool down. Ideally, like, I mean, the Danish rye bread, you're supposed to, what's called, set it and leave it for at least 5 hours, if not overnight. That's an extreme example. But with a roll, ideally you want to leave it for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes till it's cooler. But obviously
yeah,
today...
we're going to chop them open today, but yeah, there's myths about saying you can't eat hot bread. It's not that you can't, it's that you shouldn't, because it's still kind of setting inside. Like, it's cooked, but it's setting.
Yeah, you might find it's
you can kind of see
a bit
it
moist
here.
and claggy. If you cut it open, it's still I mean, there's nothing better than a hot roll that's just come out of the oven with butter,
Covered in butter, yeah.
butter melting all over it.
Butter.
You've got the butter.
Butter, and where's my favourite filling? Egg mayo. That's super health. Butter and cheese and chutney. Butter and egg.
But so which one should we do instead? Maybe a tomato or a cucumber?
Yeah.
It has to cool down.
Ideally, it's too hot to make a sandwich, but I mean, like I said, there's nothing better than a roll that's just come out the oven, smothered in butter, and I taste it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
And
just...
salt. Don't forget salt.
Don't forget salt. I'm going to put extra butter. I know you're a fan.
Half a layer.
But, like...
For your sandwich fillings, if you've got your fresh sandwich fillings, you're going to wait for it to cool. Again, we're rushing today. Everything is hot. So these can go into a wire. Set them aside, put your fillings in when you're ready, put your favourite fillings in. So, but look at that, that is a healthy amount of butter.
Very nice.
Butter like cheese. There is nothing better than fresh bread. And realistically, like that has come out quite moist. So this was the 100%
Springy.
whole meal. You're eating the whole meal as well.
Yeah.
That's come out really quite moist, but it's got good lightness in that from your yeast. Usually your whole meals are quite dense, but I'm really happy with that and when it's come out.
Yeah, and I don't really like wholemeal, but if you go something that's like a little, no thank you. But something like granary with the malted barley and stuff, it like makes it a little bit sweet, a little bit lighter than straight wholemeal. So it's a nice bridging between like straight white and full dense wholemeal. So if you want something in the middle, granary is kind of your best bet.
Yeah, that Malthouse granary is kind of like a stepping stone into using maybe 100% or even going to this really nice dense rye. But for us, I feel like we've done a really good job getting this all into 1 hour. If you've managed the same, firstly, congratulations, that is absolutely amazing. But just remember each step that we have talked about, the proving, the baking, the cooling, everything like that, the mixing process even, can all take a little bit more time. This should take at least 2 hours realistically. But we've managed to do it in one. If you have as well, congratulations. You've got yourself a great dinner.
So
or lunch
please
tomorrow.
Share your results with us at Cookery School London. Please hashtag Cook for Victory. We love to see all of your amazing results, especially last night. Some beautiful plates of pasta. So well done for those of you who shared pictures of them.
Beautiful.
They kind of look better than ours, a bit embarrassing.
But also massive thanks to Tom. You did it
thank you so
amazingly.
much.
We love your bread. You can leave it with us, thanks. And if you loved it, share some videos.
And tomorrow night we'll be doing this
give us some love.
all over again with pizza for a lovely Friday night dinner. So yeah, thank you so much, Tom, for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure.
And
Thank you.
And we're going to eat some sandwiches for dinner.
We are going to eat some sandwiches for dinner, like adults. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
For
Bye.
Pizza.
Bye.